If you're in the market for a large portable speaker, you might be looking into popular options like the Sony XB41 or the JBL Xtreme 2. Or you could be looking into the LG PK7, which is essentially a mashup between the XB41 and the Xtreme 2. You get a built-in light feature and a similar speaker setup to the Xtreme 2. So let's see which one of these speakers is actually worth your money. All three of these speakers are new for 2018. Both the Sony XB41 and LG PK7 retails for $250, and the JBL Xtreme 2 does carry a premium because it retails for $300. If you want to pick either of these speakers up, I'll have links in the description below, and if you use the links, it really helps out the channel. I suggest you check them out because both Sony's and LG speakers routinely go on sale, so you might get lucky. And if you want to learn more about either of these speakers, then watch their full reviews. And check out the numerous shelf down below. Both the JBL Xtreme 2 and Sony XB41 are rocking fabric outer shells, which I personally really like. They're able to stand up to bumps and scrapes without any problems. Whereas the LG PK7 has a plastic body that does get scratched easily if you plan on taking the speaker on the go with you. The PK7 is also the biggest and heaviest speaker here, weighing in at 6.3 pounds. Even though the PK7 does have a built-in carrying handle, this speaker wouldn't be my first choice for taking it on the go with me. If you're looking for a speaker to routinely take on the go with you, then I highly recommend the JBL Xtreme 2. Even though it weighs in at 5.3 pounds, the detachable shoulder strap makes carrying the speaker around super easy. There's even a built-in bottle opener that does come in clutch. And finally, there's the XB41, which is the smallest and lightest speaker here, weighing in at 3.3 pounds. Traveling with the speaker also isn't that bad because you can just throw it into your backpack and it's not going to take up too much space. The XB41 is also the most rugged speaker here since it has an IP67 certification, so you can submerge it in water and you don't have to worry about getting dirt inside. Whereas the Xtreme 2 has an IPX7 certification, so water isn't going to be a problem for this speaker, but you should avoid getting dirt or sand in the exposed passive radiators. And finally, there's the PK7. Even though it looks like it's the toughest speaker here because it looks like it fell off a tank, it's actually the most fragile speaker here because it only has an IPX5 certification. So a splash of water isn't going to be a problem, but you shouldn't submerge it. And overall, I'm not a fan of the looks of the PK7. It's big and bulky, whereas the Xtreme 2 and XB41 are much more minimal, so when you're not using them, they just blend into their environment. Now, let's talk about ports. All three of these speakers have an audio jack for wired listening, and all three of these speakers charge via a DC input. But you can also charge the Sony XB41 via its micro USB port as long as you have a 5-watt power adapter. And I really like this because if you take the XB41 to a friend's house and if it runs out of juice, you can just borrow one of your friend's chargers. So you don't have to worry about walking around with the charging cable all the time. And finally, both the XB41 and Xtreme 2 have a USB out, which you can use to charge your own devices, whereas the LG PK7 doesn't even have a USB out. When it comes to battery life, Sony advertises a 24-hour battery life on the XB41. But with real-world use, with the light feature turned on and with the music set at 80% volume, the XB41 is good for about 12 hours of playback time. LG advertises a 22-hour battery life on the PK7, but under the same circumstances, this speaker is good for about 8 hours of playback time. And finally, there's the JBL Xtreme 2 with a real-world battery life of about 9 hours of playback time. Now let's talk about speaker setups because all three of these speakers sound very different. The Sony XB41 has the least amount of hardware going for it. It has dual front-ward firing transducers and dual passive radiators in the center that shoot out the front and out the back of the speaker. Whereas both the JBL Xtreme 2 and LG PK7 also have front-ward firing transducers and they also have dual passive radiators, but their passive radiators shoot off to the sides. But both the Xtreme 2 and PK7 also have dual tweeters, which is something the XB41 is sorely lacking. We're about to jump into a sound test where we're going to hear the XB41 and PK7 in their various listening modes, and the Xtreme 2 is running the 1.6 firmware update.
I'm so fed up of the lies that my heart believed in. Staring deep into your eyes makes it all forgiven. I feel like everywhere will be blown. My fears will grow out of control. Yet you still won't to put me off the ground now. This love's been a long time coming. My breath stops when my heart keeps running.
First off, I'm just gonna plainly say it, I hate live sound mode on the XB41 and never use it. I either listen to the XB41 in extra bass mode or I'll just use my own EQ setting. But when it comes to overall sound quality, the win easily goes to the JBL Xtreme 2. The Xtreme 2 has a neutral sound signature with the right amount of bass and treble. But what makes the Xtreme 2 stand out here is its clarity, wide soundstage, and instrument separation. Both the XB41 and PK7 sound a little muffled compared to the Xtreme 2, but I feel the XB41 still sounds better than the PK7. The vocals on the PK7 are much more pushed back than on the XB41, and the soundstage is a little narrower. And when it comes to the bass, the XB41 still beats the PK7. But sound quality aside, the PK7 is also the quietest speaker here. When all three of these speakers are playing at max volume and playing the same section of the same song, the PK7 struggles to get over the 100 dB mark, and this means this speaker isn't good for the outdoors. At my Labor Day cookout, people kept asking if we could raise the volume on the PK7, whereas the XB41 is the loudest speaker here, but there is a good amount of distortion at max volume. So the happy medium here is the Xtreme 2. It gets almost as loud as the XB41, but its sound quality stays together at higher volumes. And keep in mind, if you were to use the Xtreme 2 with a wired connection, it's going to get a little louder, which is good. Now, when it comes to pairing these speakers to other speakers, LG is the most limited here. You can only pair this speaker up to one other LG speaker. Whereas with both Sony and JBL, you can pair these speakers up to 100 other speakers. But like I've said in the past, you don't really need that. But if you do plan on pairing multiple speakers together on a regular basis, then I highly advise you invest into JBL's ecosystem. You literally just press one button on each speaker and the speakers will figure out the rest by themselves. It just works. It's not like Sony where you have to do everything perfectly, and if you mess up, you're gonna have to start all over again. And finally, let's address the light features on the PK7 and XB41. Hands down, the light feature on the XB41 looks much better than the light feature on the PK7. The light feature on the PK7 just isn't as bright as the XB41's. It's not as capable and it doesn't perform as well in brightly lit environments. The lighting modes on the PK7 is also very limited compared to the XB41. With the XB41, you can choose from a few different lighting modes that will better fit your mood. Personally, I like using chill the most, but with the XB41, you can also choose the Fiestable app to customize the light feature. And even though Sony's app always aren't the best, you can also go in and tweak the EQ settings on the XB41 so you can get a little better performance out of it. So, in conclusion, like I said in the full review, I can't recommend the LG PK7. I feel LG saw the success of the Sony XB40 and JBL Xtreme and decided to combine them and made the PK7. And they somehow managed to fall short in every category. I feel the Sony XB41 is a good option if you just want a single speaker. And if it's on sale, I would absolutely jump on it. But if you want the better audio fidelity, then the JBL Xtreme 2 is the way to go. And like I said, if you plan on pairing multiple speakers together on a regular basis, then JBL Connect Plus is a huge added benefit. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. Support the channel by clicking on the links down below, and I'll catch you next time.